High Commission of Canada. From the High Commission of Canada. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome, Hanif. Daniel. Hello, come. I hope you've all had a really marvelous time over the last 3 days. And as all good things come to an end, this Literature Festival too is coming to an end. And please don't go anywhere after this ceremony because there is a Qawwali. So to present our keynote speech today, I would like you to welcome Mr. Mohammed Hanif, a Pakistani British writer and journalist who has just launched yet another fabulous book. Welcome, Hanif.
Thank you, Tammy. I think we are all here because we are what people call literary types. Some of us read books, some of us write them, and some of us pretend to buy them. The best ones, they are my favorite. And some of us pretend to like literature, pretend to have books, pretend to be around people who are literary types. And they are the best types because I'm sure when you started reading books, it starts as a pretend thing. You carry a book around to impress your, if you are in a school or a college, to impress girls or to impress your male friends that I am more padha likha than you are. And that's where it starts. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that what kind of person gets drawn to reading and writing, or even trying to pretend to be one of those people. And it's a minority taste. It's all, most of my friends are civilians. They don't read books and they don't write books, and they go through life perfectly fine. They are all great human beings. We've seen in our own lifetime some very, very well-read monsters who have libraries full of books. So the theme of the festival is, you've all seen it. So I was trying to look for the Urdu translation of the theme. And I asked my dear friend, another writer friend, that what does this mean, perilous, Urdu mein kya kehte hain isko? And the Google says that it's khatarnak. And although he did advise me that we are literary types, so we should say pur khatar. It sounds somehow more innocuous than khatarnak. So in these khatarnak times, where we are still trying to talk about books or like books, write them, trying to sell them, as somebody mentioned. So I want to tell you a story, because books are about stories. So there's a little story about this boy who was like more literary type than anybody that I have ever met in my life. So if you are listening to me, can you raise your hands if you've heard the name of a boy called Junaid Hafiz? So at least some of us have heard of him. So it's his story. because he can't be here. So a boy is born in Rajanpur, which is जनूबी पंजाब में एक जिसे हम कहते हैं कराची वालों को हर शहर छोटा लगता है तो वो छोटों से भी छोटा शहर है. So the boy is born there, like sort of a regular struggling family. बच्चा पढ़ाई लिखाई में बहुत तेज़ होता है तो FSC में he tops the board exam and he gets a gold medal. And I'm sure many of you are parents, और एक ज़माने में सबसे बड़ा ख्वाब होता था माँ बाप का कि हमारा बच्चा डॉक्टर बने और किसी अच्छे मेडिकल कॉलेज में, सरकारी मेडिकल कॉलेज में उसको दाखला मिले, हमें फ़ीस भी ना देनी पड़े. सो उसका दाखला हुआ किंग एडवर्ड मेडिकल कॉलेज में, विच इज़ probably one of the top medical colleges in Lahore. So he gets admitted to this medical college, moves to Lahore, straight from Rajanpur, does 2 years of medicine, is very good, acing all his exams. And then he gets what some of us get at some point is the book bug. He starts to read books. And then he decides in his 3rd year that this life is not for me, that I don't want to become a doctor, which is a very silly choice for a boy to make at that age, that you're top of your game, you're in the top medical college, and you suddenly decide that no, I'm not going to become a doctor. And if you can go back and Google him, you can find out his interviews before whatever happened to him happened. He said, and that was his reason for leaving medicine and turning to literature. He said कि अगर मैं डॉक्टर बना तो मेरी एक ज़िंदगी होगी. I'll live only one life. It's a linear life. I will become a specialist. I'll make lots of money. I'll help lots of people. But if I keep reading books and keep writing books and keep studying literature, then I can live very many lives in just one life. So he quits medicine and starts doing what we are doing here. He becomes a literary type because वो काफ़ी पढ़ने लिखने का शौकीन था तो उसको वजीफ़ा मिल गया. He goes abroad, does his masters in literature, and then comes back to Pakistan. Bahauddin Zikriya University में he starts doing his MPhil. Again in what? In literature. And what does he start doing? Starts teaching. Guess what? Literature. And then something happens in his class or in his university. He says something. And we are lucky enough that we don't know what he said. Because if we repeat it, then we will all be there where he is now. So he gets arrested, and I'm always very love this Urdu word adab. So he does some beadbi in his class, and for the life of mine, I can't decide like how beadab can you be in an adab ki class. But that was the charge, that he said something bad, and then he was arrested. And then his first lawyer, who was pleading his case in the court, was shot dead. And then he was sentenced to death. So I was listening to his old interviews. I'm sure all of you, at some point in your life, have written a poem or tried to write a poem. When you were teenagers, that's how people start. They start and they kind of write a poem. So here's this boy in King Edward Medical College hostel, a village boy has come to the city, is in top medical college, is reading books, writing book, trying to write about it. So he wrote a poem, which I will read like a bit of. Because young people, when they start writing, they also get this idea that there should be a muse. There's somebody who they are in love with, or there's somebody who will come and whisper that thing that we call literature in their ear. So this poem he wrote to his muse, or what he thought was his muse. So it's called To You, the poem. So it says, hey you, yes you got all the hues, you're the sky and I'm the sea. I see you in my reflection, we both seek perfection. I can yell, but I can still not tell. And it goes on, ends with like you. Now, anybody would say that it's a bad poem, right? If you wrote it in a literature class, you'll probably get B minus. So that is the kind of punishment that literary types get, like, that people don't read your poems, they don't like your poems. But what he gets is, for doing his literature, death sentence. And for the last 13 years, from what I know, he's been in a solitary cell. And no judge wants to hear his appeal against his death sentence. And as a journalist, many of my journalist colleagues, whenever you say that, oh, this is a case that should be reported and that should be talked about. And what I'm told is mostly that if you talk about him or if you write about him, you'll get him into trouble. And you would think there's a boy who is sentenced to death, has been in a solitary cell for 13 years, and we are still wondering, we will get him into trouble. What kind of trouble you could get him into? खतरनाक काम है कुछ लोगों के लिए, कुछ लोगों के लिए नहीं है. I'm here talking to you guys. I've had free coffees, free biscuits, sold some books. So I think when you leave here, some of you are important people, some of you are vakil, some of you are journalists, some of you are just thinkers, or some of you just like a mela, that way you can get together and talk to other like-minded or people. So when you leave here, so I'll again say his name, because I always, whenever I turn up at one of these events, I think that he was the one who actually wanted to do this. He was the one who wanted to write, who wanted to read, and who wanted to talk about writing. But sadly, he is in a solitary cell. So do remember his name when you leave here. And I don't know, खतरनाक ज़मानों में कोई कहते हैं कुछ नहीं कर सकता, but there's something that you can do. Like whatever is in your power, do that. And if you can't do any of that, and even if some of you think that he has actually done something so horrible in his literature class, then you should just say a silent prayer for him, because we are allowed to pray for even the worst of sinners. Because I still think, I read his poem, because when he says you, he's talking to, from his death cell, from his solitary confinement, he's talking to you, and all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanif. I think that was probably the most important talk given at this literary festival. The last 3 days, I think this is the most important thing we've heard. And please remember, there is always something you can do. And it's not just a silent prayer. There is always something you can do, and there is always something you can say. So say it, do it, but silence is not an option. So we come to the end of this festival on a very serious and somber note. And it now boils down to thanking everyone for making all of this possible. And I'd like to request Mr. Daniel Arsenault, the Counsellor, Political, Economic and Public Affairs of the High Commission of Canada, to come and present his vote of thanks. And also remember that Canada is a wonderful country, very high on the human rights scale.
Good evening. Thank you very much for those kind words, and excuse me for arriving a bit late on stage. I am the Political, Economic and Commercial Counsellor for Canada, and I'm with great honor. I was asked to say a word of thanks to end this wonderful festival. And I think I will use the word mela, as was mentioned just a few seconds ago, because I think what we've seen over the past 3 days is this really has been a celebration that has encouraged discussions, debates, conversations on sometimes difficult, challenging issues, but also an opportunity to tell stories through different media. We talked a lot about literature, but literature and storytelling can be presented in various forms. We were very happy to present a few minutes ago a sample of adventure films from the world-renowned Banff Mountain Film Festival. We know there have been discussions, book presentations, and debates. And I always ask myself, I've been now in Pakistan for about a year and a half, and I ask people, what is the cultural capital of the world? Of the country. And what we've seen definitely this weekend, it is Karachi. The vibrancy, people interested, people acknowledging and recognizing that the theme that was chosen by the organizers, literature in a fragile world, resonates. It's worth discussing, it's worth debating. These festivals are vital. They're vital to create opportunities, to have open, frank conversations. These conversations help shape the minds of youth, the minds of the future leaders of your country. Oh, and about those future leaders, we hope they will study in Canada. And come back to Pakistan, because that's very important. And this is one thing that we've realized today at our pavilion here in the festival. We've met a lot of Pakistanis who've gone to Canada, who've studied, but they've come back and they're making important contributions to your society, to the economy, to the academic world. And it's really heartwarming to hear those stories, because that shows us how important it is to keep sustaining such people-to-people ties. I wanted to thank, of course, all of the team at Oxford University Press. You've done a great job organizing this event. Mr. Arshad and also Ms. Munisa, we've interacted with both of you, and we really recognize and acknowledge your leadership, your vision, and the way you've brought everything together in a seamless way. So congratulations to you. I think we should also thank and recognize our hosts here at the Beach Luxury Hotel, the Avadi family. They have been for a long time associated with Canada in different forms, and it always makes me very happy to be here at the Beach Luxury, and I just wanted to acknowledge and recognize them. And of course, all of the vendors and those who are also going to be happy to see you walk over there in a few minutes. And I know we're going to have a great show with a great performance of music, so I won't speak much longer. Maybe just one last thing. To all the writers, to all the speakers, the artists, the filmmakers, and of course the public who have been able to attend and came in great numbers, we wanted to thank you for your creativity, for your openness to sharing your views, but to listening to the views and considering views of others. I think this is what is going to be useful for the younger generations to see that this is possible here at the Literature Festival. And we wish the organizers all the success as they think about next year and as they think about other opportunities to create these venues for greater dialogue. On that, I wish you all a fun night, and thank you again for inviting us to participate in the final session of the festival. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And Canada is, of course, a destination everyone wants to go to and never come back, it seems. But anyway, hopefully they take your advice. I now request our festival sponsor to present their vote of thanks, Mr. Sapan Naqvi, on behalf of Getz Pharma.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here. We have lovely weather, Karachi, last few days of this cool weather before we descend into the heat. Congratulations to Oxford University Press for hosting the 17th Karachi Literature Festival. I still remember the first one. I was a bit younger, and it's so good to see that year after year, tens of thousands of Karachiites and other citizens of this country and from abroad come to this place to listen to wonderful speeches. We've all enjoyed multiple sessions on interesting topics. It's a veritable movable feast of ideas and debates. But I'm particularly intrigued by the theme of this year's KLF, which is literature in a fragile world. Now, when we speak of a fragile world, we usually mean what is visibly broken, and this means wars without end, or economies which exclude rather than include people, climates that no longer obey the seasons we grew up with, and political systems that seemed particularly agitated and permanently on edge. But there's another kind of fragility, quieter, less dramatic, yet profoundly dangerous, because it attacks not just our borders or our buildings, but our life. And this is the growing fragility of free speech, of independent thought, of the written and spoken word, and therefore of literature itself. Across the world today, free speech is under pressure. Not always through overt censorship, not always through laws and bans, but through subtler, more sophisticated means such as the collusion between power and privately owned platforms. Now, people are not always silenced by force. Sometimes they're just removed. Globally, they're quietly taken off panels, disinvited from festivals, edited out of conversations. Not because they're reckless or irresponsible, but because they're unsettling, inconvenient, or perhaps worst of all, dangerously truthful. This is censorship without proclamations, repression without visible chains, and because it leaves no fingerprints, it often escapes our outrage. In 1986, Zabir Niazi Saab published his seminal work, Press and Chains. It documented how free speech was constrained, disciplined, and punished. 4 decades later, we must ask ourselves a harder question. Are we truly freer now, or have the chains simply become invisible? And literature, which has always existed at the edge of ease, but at the center of society, feels this pressure most acutely. This is, of course, nothing new. Power has always been easy with writers, because writers, like Mohammed Hanif Saab, insist on showing us a world that is perhaps ugly and complicated. Now, the world today is addicted to black and white certainty and on very simplistic systems, when rather we should deal in abstractions and nuance. This is why Saadat Hasan Manto was dragged through courts for obscenity when in fact he was just holding a mirror to society. This is why Ismak Chugtai was prosecuted for lihaf, not because it was immoral, but because it refused to lie. This is why James Joyce's Ulysses was banned not just for language, but for unflinching honesty about the inner life of a human being. Books such as 1984 and Animal Farm were censored not because they incited violence, but because they revealed how power works, how conformity is manufactured, and how language itself can be turned into an instrument of control. In Pakistan, poetry, our most intimate and cherished form of expression, has been treated as a threat. The verses of Faiz, Jalib, Fahmida Riaz, Ahmad Faraz, and others were banned or silenced, not because they called for chaos, but because they spoke with moral clarity in moments of moral collapse. Now, literature has been fragile because truth has always been inconvenient. But it's not just fragile that I'm worried about. There's also another danger besides censorship, and that is that literature is being crowded out. And by literature, I mean quality literature. We're living in an age where ideas are being replaced by spectacle, nuance by outrage, and writers by talking heads whose primary qualification is the ability to perform rather than unfold complexity and challenge us with a powerful insight. Public figures and opinion makers are increasingly known not for the originality or depth of their thinking, but the capacity to provoke, polarize, and appeal to the lowest common denominator for attention. Now, this is not repression from above, it is actually erosion from within. Because when a society loses patience with complexity, censorship no longer requires bans or laws, it's just a cultural preference. I've been talking to Mazhar Saab and a few other people during the course of these 3 days that there was a time within living memory when Pakistan treated ideas with seriousness and respect. In mainstream places, not just literary festivals. People tune into Radio Pakistan to listen to Z.A. Bukhari and Talat Husain Saab, not for entertainment, but for intellectual nourishment. When television arrived, families gathered to watch plays adapted from novels and short stories, or original scripts written by literary figures as they sat to revel in the refined language spoken by nuanced characters. We had Ubaidullah Beg, who made thinking feel elegant. We had Zia Muhyiddin, who reminded us that words have music, weight, and dignity. We had Hasina Muin, whose screenplays captured our hearts, and actors who became as much a part of our lives as our loved ones. This was not elitism. It was a culture confident enough to demand more of itself and aspire higher. When we look at a cultural output today, we need to ask who is to blame, but we should also ask what it reveals about what we value. And this is precisely why spaces like Karachi Literature Festival matter. And that's why the institutions that support them matter as well, whether it is Getz Pharma, the Canadian Consulate, and the names that you see over here. Now, at Getz Pharma, our commitment to culture does not come just from branding or obligation, but from belief. We believe in honesty, in beauty, in passion, and in truth, not only as literary ideals, but as values essential to a healthy society. Yes, we make medical products. We make very good medical products. And we take that responsibility seriously, striving for the high standard of quality and integrity. But we also recognize something fundamental, that human beings are not sustained by medicine alone, and society has a heart and soul. Bodies may be healed by drugs, but the heart and soul of societies are nourished by literature, film, art, music, and the freedom to express what is difficult, unsettling, and true. Societies that neglect its cultural and creative life may survive physically, but they begin to hollow out internally, emotionally, morally. They lose empathy, imagination, and eventually the capacity for self-reflection and humanity. Supporting literature in fragile times is therefore not a luxury. It is actually an act of faith and human spirit. And this brings me to the larger point. We live in a world that often feels unhinged. It's angry, it's noisy, it's impatient, it's brutal. It's a world where cruelty circulates faster than compassion, where conformity is rewarded, where silence is often easier than speaking the truth. And in a world which is so ugly, so brutal, we sometimes are tempted to ask whether art or literature or music or poetry still has a place. Is it just a pleasant distraction, or is it a luxury? Is it something that elites or those who believe in elitism do? Now, another anecdote that I would like to narrate away, that during the Second World War, the American poet Ezra Pound was asked a similar question, that was poetry really needed when the world was tearing itself apart? And his response was very simple. He said, you may as well ask me as if our roses are needed. Is beauty needed? Is love needed? Is passion needed? And this answer feels even more urgent today, because in a world that's grown harsh and increasingly ugly, we do not need less art, less music, less culture, or less literature, but we need it more. Not as escape, but as resistance. Not as an ornament, but as a necessity. Not to make us comfortable, but to remind us of who we're capable of being, even if that is uncomfortable. If we allow that to disappear, if we allow noise to replace thought and spectacle to replace meaning, we may continue to function as a capitalist and industrial society, but we'll lose our soul. Acceptance of this situation means collapse, and silence is complicity. Literature is resistance, and resistance is survival. And this resistance is the greatest antidote to fragility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siptan. That was really fantastic. We all need to hear the inconvenient truths, and I hope that KLF, with support from Getz Farmer, continue to be a forum for these truths. And just a little anecdote here. I was in Kabul several years ago, just after one of the wars, and everywhere I went, there were buildings that had been bombed, everything had bullet marks, it was really ugly. But every single place that I went to, there were containers where they grew roses. They grew them in gardens, in kiaris, in ghee tins. There were roses everywhere. They were fighting the ugliness. And I think that's what this literature festival does as well. So thank you very much for that. I now request Mr. Arshad Saeed Husain, Managing Director, Oxford University Press, Pakistan, to come and present his vote of thanks.
Distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Mohammed Hanif, Mr. Daniel Arsenault, Counsellor, High Commission of Canada, Sapan Naqvi from Getz Farmer, our wonderful moderator, Aisha Tami, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, Assalamu alaikum. Tonight, before we lift our voices in celebration, we must remember the victims of the heinous attack on the Imam Barga in Islamabad and the devastating Gul Plaza fire. We mourn the precious lives lost and pray for the injured and the bereaved. In this hour of grief, we hold fast to what this festival asks of us each year, that we remain human and humane. Because that is what Karachi Literature Festival stands for. That conversation is a way of caring, that ideas can console, and listening heals. In an era of exponential change, writers will continue to write, artists will continue to create, and scholars will continue to inquire. Festivals like the Karachi Literature Festival remain essential spaces for thought, imagination, and dialogue. Despite the sobering global issues discussed over the past 2 days, KLF is at heart a festival, a celebration of books, ideas, creativity, and community. Here, ladies and gentlemen, the jewels of our vast literacy tapestry have glittered. From the iconic Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy's fierce imagination to Sam Dalrymple's insights on shattered histories and borders, to Ikram Sehgal's reflections on power and its entanglements, we were all challenged for choice. Laleen Paul's talk on fiction at the edge of nature, and Mohammed Hanif's brilliant satirical novel. We were enthralled, captured, picked, and yes, satiated. The souls of Karachi and audiences far beyond our shores who were connected online quickened anew. Our very own stalwarts blessed us, the evergreen Iftikhar Arif Sahab, the luminous Zehra Nigah Apa, the indomitable Kishwar Nahid, the ever-provocative Asghar Nadeem Sayyed, and the discerning Nasir Abbas Nayyar, and so many more whose words have become part of our collective bloodstream. And how this festival has unfurled. Our signature mushaira rose like a tide of cadence and memory, and our Sindhi mushairo sang of the river in its own language. Sessions in education, culture, and public interest drew first blood, piercing complacencies, raising new urgencies, and pointing us towards a better tomorrow. From the great KLF debate on AI, where we wrestled with human creativity in an age of algorithms, to the inter-school debate in which our children argued we saw the future speak for itself. Book launches delighted, new voices took flight. The Karachi Kacheri kept us honest and alive to our city's pulse. If at times the program felt like a generous storm, that was by design. 6 parallel sessions made us gloriously spoilt for choice. The corridors and lawns became a marketplace of ideas. Friendships were brokered in queues of teas. Alliances were forged over dog days pages. Each encounter said, in its own way, keep going, read more, think deeper, and be kinder. We have glittered in a season that Karachi quietly insists is spring. Soft breeze of the water, birds at dawn, and the gentling of the sun. Spring is the grammar of beginnings, the proof that dormancy yields to life. May it always be a grammar for our civic hope, that from the winters of fear, fear of conflict, fear of scarcity, and fear of indifference, we can craft a more hospitable common life. Yes, the work is hard, but festivals like the KLF rehearse us and prepare us for it. They teach us the habits of attention, imagination, disagreement without contempt, and solidarity without uniformity. Allow me then to offer gratitude, because gratitude is the closing stanza of any great gathering. First, to our speakers, panelists, and performers, those who traveled from afar and those who came from across Pakistan, and those rooted here in Karachi. Thank you for your labor of thought and for your generosity of spirit. To the media, print, broadcast, and digital, thank you for carrying these conversations outwards faithfully and with vigor. We are indebted to our sponsors and co-sponsors whose partnerships made this festival possible, especially the Government of Sindh, our title sponsor for the second year, whose support is vital and we deeply appreciate it. Our co-sponsors, Getz Pharma, the British Deputy High Commission, the Embassy of France, the High Commission of Canada, the British Council, Alliance Française, Goethe Institute, Coca-Cola, Tapal, NBP funds, UBL funds, Al-Amin Bank, Bank of Punjab, Dollans, ABL funds, Acumen, and RM Digital. A very special thank you to SMS Security for keeping us safe here in Karachi, and to SI Global, our digital partner, for standing with us year after year. The KLF is blessed to call the historic beach luxury hotel its home. To the Avari family and to the management and staff who hosted us with such care, thank you. Our gratitude also to our media partners at Nutshell Communications and to our tireless event organizers, Spot On and Prime Productions. Your craft and calm under pressure are the invisible architecture of this success. My heartfelt thanks to members of our advisory committee whose counsel steadies our compass, and to the KLS Advisory Board and jury for shepherding excellence with both rigor and warmth. And of course, to the KLF team at Oxford University Press. After this speech, I will be asking all the KLF team members to come on stage for a group photograph. But before I conclude, I must mention our wonderful volunteers in the red t-shirts. These young boys and girls have been the backbone of our festival. It is this generation of children who gives us hope for a brighter, bigger, better tomorrow. So thank you all, children. You've been phenomenal. You worked tirelessly, and you've helped make this festival such a huge success. As we fold up the banners and the halls return to their everyday rhythms tomorrow, know this: festivals do not end, they echo. We will carry away fragments of a line, a question that won't let us go, a handshake that felt like recognition. Something inside us has shifted, perhaps only to a degree, but enough to alter our horizon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how change begins, one step at a time. So let us celebrate and let us take ownership. This is our KLF, the festival by the sea, the city's own open book, the nation's conversation with itself and the world. May it continue to convene courage and curiosity. May it keep making room for young voices and old wisdom. May it remind us, especially in difficult hours, that to be cultured is to be compassionate, and that to be learned is to be kind. With remembrance in our hearts, with gratitude on our tongues, and with hope at our backs, we say, until next time. May the magic of this festival abide us with you long after you leave these grounds. Thank you, and Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, Arshad, for that. That was really wonderful. So 3 cheers for KLF and 3 cheers for humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a group photograph now, but please remain seated because we have Hamza, Akram Kamal and brothers performing straight after.